next 2 weeks is try to serve you as best I possibly can. So that's going to take a little understanding of where you all are in your journalism careers, and some of your understanding for where I am. If you've done journalism for any amount of time, you probably already know that it is an iterative process. Do you know what I mean by iterative? Something happens, and then something else happens after that, and then something else happens after that because of the two things that happened prior to that. And that is one of the biggest skills that you need to learn as a journalist. You need to get into the flow of what's happening. In the area of politics, it's really war without bullets. You know, there's a colossal clash of ideas and authorities and narratives that is happening all around you, and they all have influences at any particular time. They all are compelling at any one particular time. So you have to sort of follow the strain through the world. Now, we live in a time in journalism where it's becoming increasingly more partisan, which is bad news. It's actually there are two fundamental threats to journalism right now. One is financial, and one is philosophical. And the philosophical fundamental threat is that we've lost our ability to serve all of our readers. They're now being forced to pick narratives that they like, and that's not journalism. Michelle introduced me as being I'm 30 years into a company that publishes, that's got 27 different properties. We run 75 reporters in DC, in the DC area. They're all investigative reporters. It's one of the biggest investigative reporter shops in this town. My partner, I'm responsible for probably starting 20 to 25, I actually forget, of the properties that I was the central editorial executive and chief cook and bottle washer at the beginning for these properties, and have been helped by my partner through most of that. He is a Jewish guy from New York, liberal as can be. I'm sure voted for Barack Obama, although I'm not as sure lately, to tell you the truth. But okay, he's as liberal as can be. New York City, liberal guy, liberal Jewish guy. Okay, and I'm a born-again Christian I'm 30 years into my Christian walk. I'm a charismatic. You know, I raise my hands, I speak in tongues, I do all that stuff. Okay, these two guys together have disagreed over 5 stories or less over 30 years. Okay, that's journalism. We have to get back to that. So, and it's something I'm very passionate about. It's something that we have to learn how to serve all people on this planet. And if they find out you're a journalist and you're serving them, you find out you're a Christian and you're serving them, that presents Christ in a wonderful manner. So that's the fundamental context. We can talk about the financial challenge. You probably know what I'm talking about. Everything's free on the internet. It's kind of hard to get people to pay money for it now. So we have all this work that we're doing that's really valuable, that people have gotten used to getting for free, and it's a kind of a problem. This is not a long-term business plan, and we're starting to get to the edge of the point where it's okay. Okay, and you can, if you read, if you just type, if you Google Rupert Murdoch or any of Sulzberger or any of the large publishers in town. On the planet, and you read news stories about them, you'll find that they almost meet every day, every way, about how to get the horse back into the barn. and they're trying to figure out. And maybe the iPad is, we can talk about that someday. Maybe the iPad is it, or I'm not sure. Would have never thought a device would be somewhat of a pathway to revenue, but because people seem to pay for apps, maybe we can app our way back into paying for news. But that's a whole nother discussion. We can have that sort of. I'm not here to teach the business of journalism. I'm here to teach investigative reporting. So that's another discussion. But I do need to talk about the philosophy of journalism and the philosophical challenge that journalism is facing right now. I believe we are just passing out of what would be the golden age of American journalism, which would be from sort of 1950 to the late 80s. Okay, in which I actually liked the New York Times. And the New York Times was my pinnacle. To me would be the pinnacle of journalism. I grew up in the New York City area. I grew up in Connecticut. The New York Times was, at some day to be a New York Times reporter or an editor or something was something that I really aspired to. I read the Times, I would say religiously, because I really wasn't a Christian at the time. I'm so disappointed at the Times now, although they're coming back. We're kind of past the Jason. What was Jason's last name? Jason. You know, I'm talking about the guy who just wildly plagiarized stuff, just wrote these articles. Jason. Anyway, we don't have to bring his name back into infamy. Jason, no?
Blair.
Jason Blair. That's his name. Oh, there he is. Jason Blair. I mean, that's sort of the low point of the New York Times. He wasn't the only one, but there was sort of the low point where sort of narrative journalism was actually driven by business. Okay, they were getting basically scooped on all the major stories by broadcast. I mean, the ability of the internet to deliver something immediately. Kind of, what do you want to read the same thing for the next morning? So the New York Times has over the years become much more. They want to write you just a delightful narrative. Okay, and in order to have a narrative, you got to have a philosophy. And if you start to go down the philosophy road, you start to lose the basic fundamental service of readers that journalism is. So the New York Times, my hero publishing operation, hit its nadir. I think it understands it. It's thoroughly embarrassed itself, and the managing editors and the desk editors get it now. And actually, I think they're doing a lot better. Really, they still have issues, but we don't have to talk about that today. But from 1950 to the late 90s, let's say 1988, the fundamental purpose of journalism was to provide readers a basic set of information with a clear understanding of the influences of the day on basic information. It wasn't to convince anybody to be a conservative nation or a progressive nation or a libertarian nation. It was to help a reader understand the progressive, conservative, libertarian influences that existed and were compelling on the issues of the day. And so someday, that's why, in fact, that we have such a wide contingent of independent, and where you describe America as sort of a center-right or large independent set of voters. They're all built by journalism. They should be exactly that. They should be people who have relatively open minds, are looking for the good ideas. There are some progressive influences on the planet that have actually helped us. Okay, I believe you have to. Capitalism works for the beautifully if you have money, okay? But below, there's a segment of the population which they don't have money, so that capitalism can't sell them goods and services. So they don't exist for capital in capitalism. Well, do you want to live on a planet where the moneyless 10% of population is just ignored? They don't exist because your economic system has no use for them? Well, no. Well, it's the progressive influences on the planet that have said, wait a minute, we have to take care of these people. I wish it was the Christian influence on the planet, okay? There's some ground we've lost, okay? I wish the Christians would say, wait, hold it. Can't let capitalism kill these people. We got to take care of them. I read that in Scripture. But So there was a progressive influence. So welfare, Social Security, even Medicare in its initial form has kind of gotten out of control, and it's now about to become our healthcare system. Had some merit. So that's where progressive influence. So journalists would have been the people describing all the facts and describing the efficacy of all the influences on the thoughts of the day, and giving the populace, the voting public, an opportunity to make a decision, make a good decision. Right? There's nothing wrong with a Christian doing that. As a matter of fact, like I say, they should be, the Christians of the time should have been the ones writing the investigative pieces on the poor people that capitalism forgot. Okay, I would love that, and I hope in your generation you get to do stuff like that, because that would be a wonderful thing. So anyway, that's my sort of scene setting. I mean, that's how we get into investigative journalism. The fact of the matter is, I'm an old school guy. I don't really know what anyone means by investigative journalism. That's been sort of, I'm a pre-Watergate trained journalist. Okay, Watergate, a bunch of good reporters, got a good story, and their editor let them run with it. Okay, and they ended up knocking it off for president. Okay, and it became, there's a pre-Watergate journalism and post-Watergate journalism is very, very different in this country. 90% of the journalism programs in this country were started after Watergate because kids wanted to be an investigative reporter. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm older than that. So I can't do that for you. I can teach you what I was learned as a journalist should be an investigative reporter. That's reporting. Okay, if your editor gives you an opportunity to stop writing stories on a daily basis and keep working on something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 months, okay? That's kind of what people think, I'm an investigative reporter. Well, an investigative reporter you have a relationship with your editor, okay? You're onto something, and he says, oh my gosh, that's really big. You know what, I'm gonna forego the copy that you're gonna give me tomorrow, because the copy you're gonna give me 2 weeks from now could change the plan. Okay, that's my definition of investigative journalism. You just get more time to work on your story, but the skills that you work on are the same skills. Okay, what are the skills? We'll talk about that a little later.